when the nutritionist saw it and interrupted us, saying, "Hey guys, what is that?" We turned toward the ridge that is usually used as a parking, but had been abandoned for months. And all four of us saw that pale humanoid creature crawling along the ground, about 30 meters away.
Hello. This will be a long story, very entertaining and full of detail. This happened in Mexico, so the name of some places will be in Spanish, but I promise it won't interfere with the whole experience of the video. So get ready, because these might just be some stories for some of you, but if you don't have enough respect for them, they might just become your next reality. Let's begin with our program, What Crawls in the Nights. I saw a pale humanoid crawling in Ciudad Universitaria. I live in Mexico City, very close to Ciudad Universitaria. I'm a licensed biologist. I don't use any kind of drugs. I'm 39 years old, and I'm building a career in the pharmaceutical industry, which is why I don't usually talk about this. During the COVID-19 pandemic, strange things happened, mainly wildlife that normally is invisible, but that we were able to observe thanks to the changes we were forced to make during lockdown. However, this anecdote is not about any organism described in textbooks or in the Reps of Fauna articles. The sighting occurred near the Institutes of Biology and Biomedical Research, right up to the green path, where the football fields begin along the sports zone circuit in normal times. Specifically on the ridge that serves as a parking area. But during that period, because of the pandemic, there were no classes and practically no one passed through there, not even the athletes who are usually around. Due to the campus being abandoned during the pandemic, the grass had grown very tall everywhere, and that area was very dark at night. It had never had lighting and was one of the few places in the city where you could see the stars, since light pollution was minimal. Months after our sighting, coincidentally, they cleared the overgrowth, excavated to install electrical wiring, and added lighting in the area. Who knows? Perhaps we weren't the only ones who saw that thing, since campus patrol surveillance has also increased. Fortunately, I wasn't alone when we saw that pale humanoid crawling along the ground. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have believed it myself. That time, I was with a biologist colleague who holds a master's degree and is currently about to earn a PhD, a woman with a degree in human nutrition, and another person. We went out walking in that area every day, so it's very familiar to us. We went to forget a bit about the daily stress of working from home and the global pandemic situation. A few days before the sighting, we heard a sound coming from the same place where we later saw that thing. It didn't sound like anything familiar. It was like a scream mixed with the sound of a pig. Because of the darkness and the overgrown vegetation, we didn't see anything at the time. But if it had wanted to attack us, it could have easily ambushed us. Instead, I think it was more of a warning, since nothing else happened. We dismissed the sound, attributed it to dogs, and continued our way. The day we saw this being was around 8:30 p.m. on some day in January 2022. We were walking, talking about mundane topics, when the nutritionist saw it and interrupted us, saying, "Hey guys, what is that?" We turned toward the ridge that is usually used as a parking, but had been abandoned for months. And all four of us saw that pale humanoid creature crawling along the ground, about 30 meters away, illuminated only by the moonlight. At first, we thought it was a big dog or something like that. That's what it looked like at first glance. But after watching it more carefully, we noticed it had a human shape. But it was completely naked, bald, a uniform white color, and it didn't move like a person crawling. Rather, it moved naturally, all on fours, with its torso completely straight and pressed close to the ground at a decent speed, as if it were just out for a walk, just like us. I wanted to get closer and suggested that my companions start recording with their phones, but instead, they convinced me to leave the area as quick as possible. We couldn't see its face, nor could we tell whether it had or not a tapetum lucidum. It's a part of the eye that some animals have that makes the eyes glow at night when light is reflected from them. I imagine you guys have seen it in cats at night, dogs at night, but us humans, we don't. We don't have that. Finally, after about 5 minutes of brisk walking, we reached Avenida de los Insurgentes, near the Olympic Stadium, and talked about what we had just seen. We never saw the face of that thing, and as good scientists, we concluded that it must have been a homeless person with severe dermatological and psychological problems. But that conclusion doesn't really convince us. Besides sounding forced, it didn't move or look like any human. I wanted to publish this because it won't let me sleep. As a good scientist, I'm skeptical, and I had never believed in myths or legends, which, until that day, I thought belonged to superstitious people without scientific training. But my worldview changed from that day on. I should also mention that I'm an athlete. I live very close to the area, and since 2004, I had gone running there on different days and at very different times, from 5 a.m. to 12:30 a.m. You run when you can, that's what I always say. And I had never seen anything paranormal. Only feral dogs, homeless people, tarantulas, and bats. Once one flew straight into my chest when I opened a door at 6 a.m. I searched online for information about this, but I haven't found anything convincing. The closest thing to what we saw comes from videos filmed in forests in Canada and the United States. I think they call it a pale crawler or skinwalker. In Mexico, they are called nahuales or chaneques. Although there are differences compared to what we saw. I've thought about contacting a colleague, perhaps a biologist, agronomist, soil scientist, or geologist who has the access to the reserve so we can conduct an investigation. But I wouldn't even know how to bring it up. It's almost impossible to mention something like this within the scientific community because obviously no article describing the local fauna mentions a pale humanoid as a described species. Curiously, there's a cave system in the area. Perhaps that's how it moves around. You would only need to locate a water source for this being to sustain itself, and its location could likely be determined since my hypothesis is that it feeds on small mammals. I would like to see that thing again because strangely, I didn't feel fear at the time, only curiosity. Now, I'm more psychologically prepared and I need evidence to satisfy my curiosity and my hunger to know the truth. I'd like to know if anyone else has seen that thing, since there used to be videos and information that might have been related, but for some reason, This material can no longer be found online, as if someone or something is trying to hide its presence. There's only some accounts and a handful of videos. And remember, guys, don't ignore the sounds tonight. You've already awakened it. Good night, and don't let the bedbugs bite.